Okay, tell me if this sounds familiar. You finish another crazy shift as a nurse practitioner, you sit in your car and you just stare at the steering wheel for a minute. You're too tired to even think about dinner, and you gave everything to your patients that day. You charted until your brains feel like mush, and somehow you still feel like you didn't do enough. And you tell yourself, just get through the week. Just get through the week. But then it's the same week. And then the week after that. And you're not living your work anymore. You're just surviving it. But here's the thing, you didn't become a nurse practitioner to just get through the day, to just get through it. You did it because you want to help people, to connect with people, to make a difference in the world. But somewhere between the charting, the expectations, the constant rush patient to patient, that spark faded a little bit, didn't it? And what if it didn't have to be this way? What if it didn't have to be this way? What if finding happiness in healthcare isn't about quitting your job or working less hours, but something way simpler? That's what we're diving into today. Because if you don't just have to survive your workday anymore. You can actually enjoy it. You can reconnect with why you started with this in the first place. So let's talk about how to stop just surviving and what to do instead, because you deserve more. Hi, for those of you who are new here, my name is Nicole. I am a nurse practitioner, and I help other nurse practitioners find happiness in healthcare and meaningfully connect with their patients in 60 seconds or less. So, I am a rheumatology nurse practitioner, and I get a lot of questions about arthritis. And one of my physician colleagues recently asked me, how do I prevent osteoarthritis? And this colleague of mine, he exercises routinely. He takes collagen and fish oil and lots of supplements, and he's currently researching how to get his mitochondria to burn fat, which is kind of fascinating. We recall from anatomy class, mitochondria is the powerhouse or the powerhouses of the cell. They generate energy or ATP to help cells do all kinds of things. But it was such an interesting question from my colleague. How do I prevent osteoarthritis? And we all know that when you have osteoarthritis, you have joint pain. Maybe your wrist hurt from typing or writing for so many hours. Maybe you have low back pain from lifting your 5-year-old in the playground. Or maybe you have bad knees. You have knee pain from doing so many squats at the gym. And I realized my colleague he's not just asking, how do I prevent osteoarthritis? He's actually asking, how can I have more time? And not just any time, how can I have more quality time in my life? He's asking, how can I have a longer life that is pain free and happier? So let's look at the typical American lifespan of an adult. As an adult, you get a job and you work until retirement. You toil and you work hard to pay back your student loan, your mortgage, pay off your bills, maybe save up for your kids' college tuition. And you trade years of your life for money. You're literally trading time for money. And when you retire, around maybe the age of 65 or average around there, you are free. You are free to do with whatever you want to do with your time. Your time is yours. But you're older when you're 65, right? You don't have as much energy. Maybe you do have osteoarthritis. You can't walk, maybe you can't walk long distances. For example, maybe you've always dreamed about visiting Italy and walking down the cobblestone streets and looking for the perfect restaurant to sit and enjoy a delicious plate of bruschetta with some garlic, olive oil, and tomatoes. Maybe that's always been your dream, but you have bad knees now as a retired 65-year-old, and walking more than 20 steps causes a searing pain in your knees and your legs, and you need a walker to ambulate and to get around. And that's going to make the cobblestones in Italy nearly impossible at this point. And so we don't just want a longer life, we want a longer and better quality life. Because what's the point of a longer life if we're just in pain and debilitated and miserable? So I realized what my colleague is actually asking me is, how can I have more time? How can I have more time? He's a husband and a father to young kids, and he just wants to be a good dad. That's really all he wants. He wants his kids to think of him as a good father. He wants to be there for them. He wants them to think that he was present for them. And so he wants to be able to play ball with them when they get older. He wants to be able to help them move into their college dorm, their freshman year of college, and be able to lift these heavy boxes out of the car to the dorm house, the dorm house, up the flight of stairs to their room, so that when his kids grow up, they move out, they get a job, they have a family. They will still love their dad so much that they come back on the weekends or the holidays and give him a big bear hug and say, "You're a good dad." That's what he really wants. That's what he really wants. It's not about preventing osteoarthritis. Because if you want, as a rheumatology nurse practitioner, I can give you the answer of how to prevent osteoarthritis, but I'm pretty sure it's not what you're looking for. This is how you prevent osteoarthritis. You quit your job, you pack up your things, you leave your spouse and your kids, and you immigrate and move to Bhutan, Burma, or Thailand, and you become a monk. You meditate, you focus on your breathing, you dedicate and spend your entire life devoted to the spiritual side of things. You're not sitting down on the computer, hunched over for your entire career, 8 hours a day for decades. You don't spend time hunched over, having osteoarthritis in your shoulders, or maybe you type so much you get carpal tunnel in your wrists. You convert to a vegetarian diet. You eat a variety of 30 vegetables a week. In fact, you even fast. You eat 2 meals a day, probably breakfast and lunch, because most monks don't eat past noon. And in fact, did you know that expert cardiologists recommend eating only 2 meals a day within 6 hours and fasting for the remainder 18 hours a day? Because it improves your cardiovascular health and it reduces insulin resistance because your glucose isn't spiking as many times during the day. And too much insulin can lead to inflammation and cartilage degradation of your joints, leading to osteoarthritis. Did you know that? You also, as a monk, you don't drive and commute to work every day. You're not driving over potholes or broken cracks in the road, or maybe you have an old car with bad shocks you can't afford to fix. And so your car, you're constantly bouncing in your seat, in the driver's seat, which causes, what do you think? Osteoarthritis in your hips and your low back. You don't have kids or dependents that you need to take care of, maybe little kids that you lift and carry in the playground. If you're a mom, you don't get mom thumbs or de Quervain syndrome from holding your kids in the football hold every day. You don't have a young son to throw a baseball repeatedly 150 times in a row, where your rotator cuff is completely sore that you can't even lift your arm overhead now. You don't have the mental stress of sitting in rush hour, dealing with road rage drivers. This driver cut you off while you're trying to go to work, and you're honking your horn. You're now angry and you want to yell at them. And that stress, you get to work, that stress triggers a release of inflammatory chemicals like cytokines, which can damage cartilage and increase joint pain. That's how you prevent osteoarthritis. But that's not the answer my colleague is looking for, because his real goal is to have more meaningful moments with his family during his life. To him, osteoarthritis means joint pain, and joint pain means suffering, agony, and unhappiness. What he's really asking is, how can I have more happy and joyful times in my life? And I get it, and I 100% agree. I want as many happy and meaningful moments in my life as possible that I have on this earth. So the truth is that humans live to an average age of 72 years old right now. In the US, the average age is about 78 years. So if you're listening to this and you are 39 years old or more, you are more than halfway through your life. Isn't that scary? That's kind of scary. And in fact, 100 years ago, the average human lifespan was about 60 years. So in the last 100 years, we've gained about 12 to 18 years of extra life. And you know why? Now, as a nurse practitioner, you probably already know why. Science and medicine. In fact, the first antibiotic, penicillin, was discovered in 1928 by a Scottish biologist, Alexander Fleming, in London. But it wasn't until 1941 that penicillin was first used on humans. And the first patient was a police officer with a life-threatening illness or life-threatening infection. And so medicine works. It extends people's lives. Actually, it absolutely works. And that's exciting. We are living longer than ever before. Maybe in another 100 years, science and medicine will give us another 20 years of extension of our life, the average lifespan. But let's be honest, crossing our fingers and hoping that science will make an absolute life changing discovery within our lifetime that will extend our lives further, and preferably for that discovery to be made within the next few days while we're still young and in the prime of our lives, that thought is kind of victimizing. It's victimizing. You are saying to yourself, I am the victim of my circumstances. In fact, let's think about it. Are we the victims of living in the 21st century? We are limited by our technology, by, the science of our time. We don't have flying cars to drive us to commute to work really like, instantly. But 100 years ago, people didn't have the internet. And yet in 1928, Scottish biologist Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin and ushered in a new age of antibiotics and revolutionized medicine. And so he didn't need to live to 100 years to make the most of his life, to make the most impact on others. My physician colleague, he wants to make an impact on his kids' lives. He wants to make his and their lives meaningful. But Alexander Fleming showed us you don't need 100 years to do that. So asking yourself, how can I have a longer, healthier, happier life? It's kind of irrelevant if you think about it. A better question is, how can I compress time? How can I compress time? How can I infuse my life with more happier and meaningful moments in my life? And we all want to have a happier life. But the question is, how do we have a happier life? It's such a big existential question. I mean, how the heck can we answer such a big question when I am struggling just to plan what's for dinner tonight? So, what do we do when we have hard questions? We break it down. We make it easier. We make it digestible. Instead of saying, how can I have a better life? Let's do, how can I have a better day? 24 hours, just one day. How can I have a better day? Let's start small, make the question doable. Another word for better is quality. So, how can I have a more quality day? And the definition of quality is excellent or superior, which means we're comparing our day to a prior day, like, for example, yesterday. How can I make today better than yesterday? You optimize the day before. You optimize the day before to make today better. So it could be you went to bed early last night. So like you wake up early today to feel refreshed and energized. Or maybe last night you set out your workout clothes the night before so you can wake up today and just right away get dressed and go exercise and follow through. Like you said, you would always follow through. Or you can optimize the morning of that day. Maybe you set your alarm clock 30 minutes early to have time to make a hearty breakfast so you feel full and energetic and you don't feel hungry. Or maybe you left your house early to deal with the morning commute to go to work. So you arrive at work with a few minutes extra and your mind feels clear and at ease. You give yourself a better day by optimizing the day before or optimizing the start of your day. The same goes for your life. You optimize your years. So, how do we do this? How do we do this? What did people do before we had medicine, before we had longer lives? Why are they still remembered today? How did they create so much impact with the short time that they had in their lives? I want to tell you a story. I think this will really hit and resonate and kind of paint a picture of the point I'm trying to make. I want to tell you a story. In 1847, a young boy was born in Ohio. 1847. We're talking about the 1840s, almost 200 years ago. What happened in the 1840s? The Liberty Bell was cracked while being run for George Washington's birthday. In the 1840s, the US issued the first postage stamps for mail delivery. In the 1840s, in the 1840s, Texas was admitted as the 28th state in the US. In the 1840s, life expectancy was about 40 years old. I'm trying to give you a picture of what the world was like in the 1840s, especially the US. So now you kind of understand. So this young boy, he was born in 1847. When he was about 5, 6, 7 years old, about young elementary school, he came home with a letter from his teacher, and he gave the letter to his mom because his teacher told him, give it to your mom. And then his mom opened the letter and she read it, and it said, "Your son is a genius. The school is too small for him and doesn't have enough good teachers to train him. So please teach him yourself." And that young man grew up to be very smart and very successful. And years later, after his mother passed away, he found the original letter from his school in a closet he was cleaning out of. And he opened the letter and he read it, and he was shocked. The letter said, "Your son is addled. Your son is mentally deficient, and he should no longer attend school." Guess who that man was? Thomas Edison. Thomas Edison, the man who invented the light bulb, you guys, all right? Can you believe it? Thomas Edison was so shocked to realize that his mom believed in him so much that she lied about what was in the school letter, and she chose to teach him at home and never give up on him. She didn't even give him a choice. She didn't give him time but to believe him himself. She didn't give him time to question himself. He didn't waste time questioning his obsessive love for science and learning, that he published his own newspaper at 15 years old. He invented the phonograph at 30 years old and invented the light bulb at 32 years old. Now, some historians, they argue about the historic accuracy of the story. Some historians say that there wasn't an actual letter involved, that actually Thomas Edison as a young child overheard his teacher tell an inspector that Thomas was addled, and Thomas ran home crying to his mom, told her what he heard. The next day, she marched back to school angry with her son. She scolded at the teacher and said, "I am withdrawing him and I'm going to teach him at home." So there is some debate. Historians are debating about what really happened. But the essence of the story is absolutely true. In fact, Thomas Edison wrote in his real diary as an adult, "Thomas Alva Edison was an addled child, but by a hero mother became the genius of the century." The moral of the story is to show us the importance of what you focus on. Your life follows your focus. If you focus on avoiding osteoarthritis, all you'll think about is avoiding pain. When you only focus on avoiding physical pain, you can unintentionally limit your body's growth, resilience, and recovery. Because if you move less, you don't want to have joint pain from moving too much. That can lead to muscle weakness or atrophy, and that can cause more pain worse over time. And fearing physical pain, it makes you hyper aware of every twinge, every sensation. It creates this cycle of fear and tension in you. You end up living your life defensively. You're constantly scanning for what could go wrong, then what could go right. You avoid risks that might actually bring meaning, connection, progress, because you chose comfort because it feels safe rather than challenging yourself. Your world shrinks, your life becomes smaller, you miss out on what's possible. But what if we focused on optimizing our time and infusing our lives with more meaning and happier moments? What if my colleague, instead of focusing on how to avoid osteoarthritis, focused on being a better parent? For example, being the parent that his child requires of him. For example, if your child has poor confidence in school, maybe they get bullied in school. What if you dedicated time for you and your child to together take a karate class to build confidence and self-esteem, but also create this core memory for your child that you were there for them? And then even when you're older, in your older years, and maybe you do have osteoarthritis in your hands, your shoulders, you can't throw a baseball with your grandchildren, but your adult child still remembers how you helped them build their confidence in grade school and took martial arts together. You infuse this idea in their mind that they can be confident, that they can be strong, that they are strong. Your adult child is now a better version of themselves because of that beautiful childhood you gave them. And now every time they visit you, they give you a big bear hug and they whisper, "You're a good dad." Now my colleague's not just surviving parenthood, he's thriving on it. So what if we as nurse practitioners focus on creating more happier and meaningful moments in our career? What if we infuse our career with meaningful moments with our patients? For example, if a patient comes in to see you and let's say they have chronic joint pain, they are angry, they are frustrated, they feel brushed off because they've seen so many different specialists and they've been pushed around and no one really knows what's going on with them. And you instead of telling them there's nothing I can do for you, and the patient feels brushed off, they go home, they write a scathing review about you, they write a long angry message to you in the internal patient portal, and now you go home feeling angry and burnt out, like you have no purpose, like what's the point of doing what you're doing? What if instead you talk to your patient about, just for a few minutes in a way that transforms them into a better version of themselves? A version that their body and joint pain needs. For example, a version of themselves that when they feel pain, when they feel flares, and instead of complaining about it, instead now they're in a detective. They're in detective mode and they're thinking, okay, what did I do differently? What did I eat differently? What's triggering my pain? And if this is something that just it resonates with you and you want to learn more about, then I highly invite you to download my free guide, Own the Patient Conversation. The link is down below. Find out how to find out how to meaningfully connect with your patient in seconds, optimize your time, and infuse more meaningful moments in your career. Moments that reveal themselves when patients tell you, you're an amazing nurse practitioner. You are better than most of the doctors I've ever seen in my life. That is how you stop just surviving your career as a nurse practitioner, but thrive in it. You create meaningful moments that impact people forever. Thomas Edison's mother passed away when he was only 24 years old. 24. But her ideas, her belief in him lived on. And he went on to invent the light bulb when he was 32 years old. Humans will die, but ideas live forever. I hope this episode was helpful. If it was, then you should definitely watch my last episode, The New Way to Find Balance in Work and Life as a Nurse Practitioner. Otherwise, I will see you all in the next episode. And remember, I am always rooting for you.